Well, I think I was expecting that people would be venting their concerns and putting those to me very strongly. The Federation representatives always do, actually, every year to every government, but at a time when we're having to take some really quite tough decisions about spending, and that includes paying conditions as well, I don't think that's surprising. But I have actually valued the opportunity to hear what people are saying, to understand the concerns, and people have got things off their chests, but also been able to explain specifics to me, and that's important. And whatever our disagreements, I always want to make clear that I really do value that dialogue with members of police forces, with their representatives. It's very important that we go on discussing these issues, and that the decisions we take are led by evidence, that we understand the effects of them, and I'll do everything I can to try and support the service and take the right decisions, even if they're not always going to be very popular.
Huge frustration. It's absolutely huge frustration that a government that came in promising we thought so much has actually turned out to be one that disregards us, on occasions has denigrated us. And there's some very fine people in the police service, and they don't need to have that sort of denigration taking place. And I know it's not the Home Secretary personally, but it's certainly people working for the Home Office or on behalf of the Home Office, and that has to stop. She has to recognise that police officers are some of the finest within society, and actually ensure that that doesn't happen. And I've made that point to her directly as well. And a lot of officers feel that. They feel that. And that's reflected in the mood.
Well, I spoke at the Sergeants' Conference this morning, and obviously been in for the Shadow Home Secretary's speech this afternoon, and been around talking to people in between. And what I think is that people are very angry, they're frustrated, and they just think they've got a government that's not listening to them. We saw this morning with the Police Minister that when people asked questions, he often said they were wrong, or that he disagreed with them. And so I think people find that very difficult, because at the very least they expect to be listened to. They're the professionals, they're the people out there on the front line, and if they're saying this is a problem for us, or this is difficult, I think the very least that they would expect is that somebody engages with that. And it seems to me that people are worried that there's almost a breakdown of trust between the police and the government, and I think that's a very, very difficult situation for any government to be in. And certainly the big mood, I think, the big mood amongst this, they just feel completely undervalued.
Well, I was deeply moved by the show of support and solidarity with the officers I represent in Northern Ireland. Obviously, after the brutal murder of Constable Ronan Kerr on the 2nd of April last, there has been an outpouring of support throughout the UK and indeed the world. And today epitomised that support, and I will certainly take back the message from this conference to the Police Federation of Northern Ireland people that I represent, that they are steadfast behind us here, and indeed our colleagues in Scotland and other parts of the world.
Well, this is my first time speaking as a panellist at the Police Federation conference, and I'd say that the mood is one of concern, one of anxiety. There's a lot of discussion about what the impact of the pay and condition changes might be. Last year it was very interesting. The Home Secretary arrived a matter of days after the coalition government formed, and the Police Federation had their first chance to hear from the Home Secretary, gave her a warm welcome, liked to hear about her plans for removing bureaucracy and driving the fight against crime, but they didn't quite have the measure of the government at that point. This year we've had a year when we've had the Windsor report into pay and conditions, we've had proposed changes to police pensions, big budget reductions and changes proposed for police pay. This year, I think the government and the Home Secretary and the Police Minister are facing a more difficult audience, an audience that's seen some of the policies and doesn't much like what it's seen. But I think in general terms, people are engaging, people are prepared to listen, and the arguments have been quite robust on both sides.
Well, I think there is deep concern from police officers right across the country who can see the cuts and the impact that is having in every community across the country, but also this perfect storm, the attack on police morale and leadership, preempting the Windsor and the Hutton reviews, and also the briefing against policing that we've seen that I think is unfair and also undermining respect for law enforcement too.
Well, I would definitely classify this as a lively conference. I think it's lively. I think it's laced with concern. and there are a number of uncertainties out there, and hopefully government and others will actually clarify those uncertainties about pay and conditions that the officers worry about. But I also hope that on the other side of this, gradually the police service will come together about how it will adapt itself to the world we're in, because that's what we all have to do.